are live. We have created a monster. Yesterday I went live for the first time ever to complain about Instagram, and I thought I need to actually start going live to provide real content now. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Shane Watson from silverladder.com, and I went live yesterday to complain about some stuff that's been going on with Instagram, but today is very different from that. I'm actually hoping to provide some content that's worthwhile, at least to those who are in recovery, looking to be in recovery, have a loved one who's in recovery, or have a loved one that is currently struggling with addiction and or alcoholism. The reason why I chose to go live with this is because I've been meaning to do a video for a while about what recovery means to me and what it doesn't mean, what it is and what it isn't. The problem is if I don't do it live, if I pre-record it and I upload it onto Instagram, I get too perfectionistic with things and I will do take after take after take, and I'll constantly be telling myself, no, I need to say that better. I need to rephrase that. I need to do that differently. And it never gets done. So what I wanted to talk about today is what recovery is and what it isn't, what it means and what it doesn't mean to me. Keep in mind, this is one guy's opinion. Your mileage, as always, may vary. Now, if you're not familiar with me, I am an individual in long-term recovery, now 12 years sober, 12 years in recovery from alcoholism and addiction. And I'm someone who went down a path of nearly 20 years of substance use. Grew up in a great home, had wonderful parents, didn't have childhood trauma, didn't have adverse childhood experiences, yet still ended up going down that path of addiction and alcoholism for close to 20 years. Ended up incarcerated multiple times, ended up a convicted felon as a result of the decisions that I made the last night that I drank or used, November 28th, 2011, and then nearly lost my life multiple times due to drugs and alcohol. I have spent the last 11 years working in mental and behavioral health. I spent 9 of those working for a local nonprofit. And since then, these last couple years, I have been doing this independently. So I have 3 connections to the topic of substance use and addiction, 3 connections to the topic of addiction and recovery. Number 1, as I mentioned earlier, was personal, that I'm an individual in long-term recovery. Number 2 is professional. I've spent 11 years in the field. And my 3rd and final connection to the topic is the fact that I am a parent. I not only have a child, but I have a child who is a preteen who is in those years where substance use tends to start for kids, where that curiosity really kicks in. But anyway, that's who I am. So I wanted to talk about 3 different things on both sides. 3 things that recovery means to me and 3 things that recovery doesn't mean. 3 things that recovery is and 3 things that recovery isn't. So first and foremost, what being in recovery means to me is that I don't drink or use. I don't use alcohol, I don't use coke, don't smoke weed, don't take pills, etc., etc. Pretty cut and dry what being in recovery means. Now, equally as important is I want to mention what recovery doesn't mean to me. It does not mean that I think you shouldn't drink or use. Now, that may surprise a lot of people, knowing that I'm someone whose life was thrown into utter chaos due to my behavior under the influence of drugs and alcohol. However, I am a huge believer in free will. I am a huge believer in people being able to make their own decisions for themselves. So while I don't drink or use, it doesn't necessarily mean that I am against it for everyone else. It doesn't mean I'm anti-alcohol. It doesn't mean I'm anti-cannabis. If you are somebody that can drink or use, and you can do it in moderation without, first and foremost, without hurting other people in the process, but also without derailing your own life, more power to you. I wish I could be a person who could do that, and obviously time proved that I couldn't do that. Welcome to those of you who just joined me. I'm talking about what recovery is and what recovery isn't. Since we're doing this live, if at any point anyone who logs in has a question about recovery, about my story, about how to help a loved one that may be struggling with substance use, about how to help yourself, go ahead and put them down there. I'll be happy to answer them for you. And if you're watching this archived later on, put them in the comments and I will absolutely get back to you on that. So that was point number one. Point number one was I don't drink or use, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I think no one else should ever drink alcohol. If you're the kind of person that can have a beer at a baseball game or a glass of wine with dinner and you leave it at that and it doesn't become 15 drinks and a DUI and you kill somebody in the process, more power to you. Point number two, what it means to me to be in recovery. I actively work to heal, improve, and strengthen myself. It's not as simple as I don't drink or use. I need, as an individual who struggled with addiction for 20 years, I need to really dig down into that bedrock, into those formative years, and look at what is it that led me to drugs and alcohol. What were the things that I was wrestling with or hadn't healed or needed to work on about myself? So what recovery means to me is I actively work to heal, improve, and strengthen myself. What being in recovery does not mean is that I get to determine what recovery looks like for other people. What actually motivated me to do this video in the first place, talking about what recovery is and what it isn't. The thing that actually spurred this idea on in the first place is there was a recovery account I was following on social media that a few times I saw them talking about some public figures and some celebrities and talking about how so-and-so wasn't really in recovery because of this and that. And it really rubbed me the wrong way. Yes, outward behavior can make it pretty obvious if somebody is struggling with drugs and or alcohol, but we do not get to determine what recovery looks like for other people. So we've got a question down here in the comments. How should I talk to someone who struggles with alcoholism if I see there's a problem that they can't free themselves from, and what can I do to help? If anything, I know I can't force them. You're absolutely correct, and I'm glad you realized that last part. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. The old adage is absolutely true. We cannot force other people to change, and it's incredibly frustrating, but it's important to recognize that. First and foremost, what I would recommend is set aside time to have a conversation with them without any distractions. Set aside a time where neither one of you is messing with your phone. You're not out in public or around other people, so you're in an environment that lends itself to being able to have a candid, truthful, open conversation. Explain to them from the very beginning, I am approaching this out of love. I want to be really clear with you. Nothing I'm saying right now is about condemning you. I don't think you're a bad person. As a matter of fact, I think you're an amazing person. I'm worried about you. And so it's important to separate the behavior from the person. Someone who's struggling with alcoholism, like you just asked about, is very likely already mentally and emotionally torn down. They may already have torn themselves down. They may already feel really bad about themselves as it is. So when we are having that conversation with them about the things we're seeing that are causing us concern, separate person from behavior. Set the standard right off the bat. I love you. I care about you so much. I think great things about you, and I want great things for you. But I need to be honest with you. I'm seeing some things lately that make me worried, and make it clear to them. This is a health issue. This is a matter of their health and safety. It's not a moral failing. Although people, myself included, under the influence of drugs and alcohol, can certainly do things that are truly wrong. But alcoholism or addiction in and of itself isn't necessarily a moral failure. So make it clear to them. I am not criticizing you. I am not condemning you. And make it clear to them, I am here to listen to you. What is going on? How can I help? What can I do to help you? And ask them, have you ever felt like maybe you drink too much? Have you ever hoped that maybe things could change and things could be better? Be willing to listen. The most that we help people is often not in the words that we say, but in the words from them that we listen to. And explain to them, have you ever thought about how life could look if things were different, if you weren't wrestling with this? What would your life look like if everything was different? And that's how you can start, is just start that conversation. Make sure with them that it's clear that it's out of love. It's not out of condemnation. Make it clear that you are willing to be there to help them. If they need you to drive them to a 12-step meeting or help them find a treatment facility, you're willing to do that. And really get them to think about what they may want to change, or also what is underneath it. You know, if they trust you enough that they can really get candid with you, they may start to open up to you what's underneath the drinking. Because drugs and alcohol aren't necessarily the main problem. They can become a problem, but they're often a symptom of another problem that's underneath that people are trying to self-medicate. So that's a short answer. There's actually a lot more information that I could add to that. Eventually, when I do have my website up for my mental and behavioral health education and support business, I'll definitely go into greater detail on that, because that's a question that I get a lot from people who do have loved ones who are struggling with addiction or alcoholism. They want to know, how do I help them? How do I have that conversation? So I'm going to continue on with my final point here. Number 3, what recovery means to me and what recovery looks like to me is that I have made significant improvements. I work every day to better myself. It's not enough for me to not drink and use. I need to be accountable to myself and to others, and I need to be brutally honest with myself about, am I starting to coast? Am I starting to slack? Am I being lazy? Because those are some of the first steps that lead me back to those old behaviors. So recovery to me means I have made significant improvements. What it doesn't mean is I have it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out by any means. And so that's one thing that I really wanted to clear up, that people sometimes misunderstand about individuals who are in recovery, is that there's this point that we reach where, hey, we've solved it. It's all fixed. It's all figured out. It's not true. Every one of us as human beings, we are all works in progress, and I am no different. So anyway, this is, I know the pace of this is pretty quick. I wanted to make sure that I kept this reasonably brief, but talked about the 3 main points that I had: what recovery means to me, what it doesn't mean, what it is, and what it isn't. My name is Shane Watson from silverladder.com. I'm going to go ahead and archive this, and if any of you have any questions in the archived version, feel free to go ahead and put them in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. If there's other topics that you would like me to talk about related to mental and or behavioral health in the future on an Instagram Live, let me know that as well. If you want me to talk about relapse, if you want me to talk about healthy coping skills, healthy communication skills, what does accountability look like? There's a variety of things. And keep in mind that I'm also happy to talk about anything related to mental and behavioral health and wellness, not solely things that fall under the umbrella of substance use recovery. So again, one last time, my name is Shane Watson from silverladder.com. Hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully it benefits somebody in one way or another. Thank you for sharing your time with me.